I wish you could have been there. It was early in the morning, and I had to leave my office in Philadelphia early because that afternoon I was going to be speaking in Akron, Ohio. I was going to speak to a group of air conditioning association folks. So left the office early. I'm in my truck. I'm on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, and I'm driving west. Now, for those of you who drink coffee, you know what it's like when you're having that first cup of coffee in the morning. You're in your vehicle, you're driving somewhere, you're taking a few sips of that coffee, and you're catching the buzz. And you know what that buzz is. You start to get ideas about what you're going to do and how your day is going to go, and you get optimistic. And there I am, I'm catching that buzz, I'm driving west, and as I pass Lancaster, my cup is empty, and I decide I'm going to refresh the cup. So I see a sign for a rest stop. I pull the truck over into the rest stop, park the vehicle, walk over to the building, push open the doors. I take 2 steps inside, and then it hits me. I could smell bacon frying on the griddle. And I could smell biscuits, bacon in the oven. Somebody was frying eggs in a pan. But intellectually, I only went in to buy a cup of coffee. Walked over to the counter. There was a nice young lady at the counter. She was energetic and enthusiastic. I asked for a cup of coffee. She fills it, puts it on the counter. Coffee cost about $1.50. I reach into my wallet for a $5 bill, hand that $5 bill over the counter, and then she does it. She looks me in the eye, she smiles, and she asks, "You want a breakfast sandwich? They're fresh." And there I stood in the presence of this positive person asking me to taste the pervasive aroma which had filled the room. And I answered, yes. And she turned that $1.50 coffee sale into a $4 breakfast sale. So I took 2 steps to my left, and I poured one of those creamers into my cup of coffee, and I was able to hear the transaction of the guy who was behind me in line. He had also asked for a cup of coffee. I look over to my right, I see him handing over a $10 bill for that same $1.50 cup of coffee, and she does it again. Looks him in the eye, she smiles, and she asks, "You want a breakfast sandwich? They're fresh." And he answers, yes. And she turns another $1.50 coffee sale into a $4 breakfast sale. So now I am curious. So being a customer service professional, I like to watch situations like this. So I back up to one of those tables at the rest stop, taking a few sips of my coffee, a few bites of my breakfast sandwich, and I'm just watching her work the counter. And it's not rocket science. It's a smile, it's positive language, it's a good facial expression, it's an energetic greeting. Those things make people feel good. And you know, in any type of environment where there's positive people, it's usually because of a culture. Because someone in that environment has set a high bar and says, this is the way we're going to do things around here. We're going to have a positive attitude, we're going to greet the customers, we're going to smile, and that culture is something that can become pervasive, just like the aroma, where everyone in the organization starts to do things like that. Culture is an interesting word because it conjures up a standard operating procedure for an organization, but culture also brings up images of background or ancestry. So you can tell by my last name, I'm Italian American. And my culture and my heritage comes from Italy. My grandfather came here back in the late 1800s. His name was Giuseppe Cascia. He came here from the village of Celenza Val Fattore in the south. He was a young man when he came here. He met my grandmother here. Her name was Angelina Califano from the village of Avellino, outside of Naples. They met here, they fell in love, they had 7 children, and my father, Anthony, was their 3rd child. And when my father was growing up, there was an expression he heard. And that expression was not specific to our family. Because when immigrants came to the United States, you know, their intention was to assimilate and to blend into the culture, to learn to speak the language. And the phrase that my father would hear often, for example, if he wanted to go out and play, my grandfather may have looked at him and said something like, "Antonio, buona figura." And he would say this expression in Italian, and my father would know exactly what it meant. Buona figura is an expression that has a specific meaning. And when you consider words and culture and meaning, buona figura, roughly translated, means to make a good impression. And in the presence of any service professional, what we strive to do is not just make a good impression, but to make a great first impression. Now that word first stands out. But to a customer, when they see a good example of a first impression, that first impression becomes so much more. Because a first impression becomes to the customer a final decision. So if you do a juxtaposition, which means put things side by side. First impression, final decision. They sound like opposites. But our first impression, based on our smile, our body language, the way we dress, the way we stand, that first impression for the customer is their final decision about you. And customers have a license to be biased. They have a license to make assumptions. And they can do it all day long. And that first impression becomes that differentiator between people who want to succeed and advance their careers and those who just want to stay the way they are. Behaviors as simple as being on time will be a deal breaker for some people. Because if you can't be on time, my friends, you may not get a good job. Because being on time says, I care about you, about your time. And when a commercial customer has hired a technician to do some work on the furnace or an air conditioner, and that commercial customer is waiting by the window for the truck to pull into the parking lot, and someone's late, now that property manager or that office engineer, he's thinking about all the other people and all the other salaries waiting on one technician because they're not on time. Time matters. And those impressions people have about others, they are vital. So my father taught me a few things about people and service. When he grew up in the Bronx, New York, where I was born, he learned lots about people. He learned lots about using his hands. And one of the ways he served his community was by delivering an all-purpose detergent cleaner. It was called Crystalline. So back in the 1940s, before people went to grocery stores to buy Tide or Ajax or something else, there were more generic products. So my father used to mix the Crystalline in this big concrete vat. He'd have bleach and chemicals, and he would mix it up, and then he would pour the Crystalline into 1-gallon empty wine bottles. So he would clean out the bottles, pour the Crystalline in, and he used to deliver them throughout the Bronx neighborhood where we lived. So, apartment buildings just like that, 6 stories tall, they were everywhere in the Bronx. So he would park the truck, he would grab 3 gallons in each hand, and he would start on the first floor selling the Crystalline, knocking on doors. And this is how my father built his social skills. Working his way up, first floor, second floor, third floor. If he got to the 6th floor and he still had 1 or 2 gallons left over, he went up to the roof, climbed over to the next building, and sold from the 6th story on down. And that's how it was done. Back down to the truck, fill up again, next building. And what he taught me about people is that, people will forget things you say. They will forget things that you did. But people, especially customers, they will never forget the way you make them feel. Customers just want to feel good. Feelings are important. And feelings are based on assumptions. Customers make assumptions about us based on the way we look, based on the way we sound. People make assumptions about other people. So my father's truck in the Bronx looked like that. That's his truck. It says pure white on the side of the truck. And back in the 1940s, you would see that truck throughout the Bronx while he was doing his route. And that truck speaks loudly about a culture. about the fact that my father cared. The truck is clean, it's well organized, and that speaks loudly about a person. But customers can make assumptions based on what they see. I was recently in a parking lot. I pulled my truck and I parked, and I saw this other truck nearby. It was a contractor's truck. There it is. Now, if you think about assumptions and a first impression and a final decision, what assumption might a customer make when they see that image? You tell me. The what? What else? Sloppy. What else would you assume? Disorganized. Doesn't care. Now, those are all assumptions. We don't know anything about this person. He may be a very empathetic individual. We don't know because we've made a final decision based on a first impression. He may be the best technician in town. He may know how to diagnose units better than anyone around. But all of that may not matter in the presence of that first impression. So people have a bias. People have a license to do that, and customers certainly do. And when you consider the way customers think and the way they may assume things, our job is to be the consummate professional. So what I'd like to do is play you a brief 60-second video. There's no audio with it, but I think you'll see some interesting images in the video, and it'll help to make the point. It's called The Window. So there's a commercial property manager. There's his office building. There's the parking lot. There's the truck. So this property manager hasn't even had the opportunity to greet this person yet. But boy, he may have made a few assumptions by now, because what customers see from their window really matters. So here's what I'd like you to do. For 60 seconds, talk to the person next to you, in front of you, behind you, about some assumptions you would make based on that 60-second video. You got 60 seconds starting right now. Go ahead. Make all the noise you want to make. Halo effect. Melody. Okay, 60 seconds are up. Somebody yell out. What did you talk about? The what? Someone yell something out.
Inattentive.
Inattentive. Good. Inattentive. Slob. What else?
He was considerate enough to smoke outside.
Considerate enough to smoke outside. He did put it out. And when you stomp on a butt and you leave it there and then you continue to walk, customer's going to have some assumption based on that. The what? Litter bug. Yeah. All right. Again, we're being redundant, but this is to drive the point home about assumptions. Haven't met the person yet, but based on what people see, they can start to assume things. It's what customers do, and they have a license to do it. So this property manager, he's being impacted by a manifestation that happens to all of us. I was speaking earlier with Antoine, and Antoine is really good at listening, and he's really good at being empathetic. Empathetic means, he knows how to convey concern for others, how to nod his head, how to make the eye contact, and say things such as, I understand. Oh, yes, I see. And he's very, very empathetic. And what Antoine is good at is manifesting something he has and something all of you have also. And it is called the halo effect. It's an interesting term. The halo implies what? Angel, something good, something positive. And the definition for a halo effect is that positive feeling you get about someone else a split second before you can intellectualize why you're having that feeling. So before I can think about why you might be a friendly guy, I just think you are. I just feel that way. It could be the way you're holding your head. It could be the eye contact. It could be the smile. Something about you is likable. And that halo effect impacts people. Now, the halo effect, based on the word angel and something positive, implies something very, very good. But there is an opposite term to the halo effect. And the opposite term is called the horn effect. And the definition of the horn effect is that negative feeling you get about someone else a split second before you can think about why they rub you the wrong way. You ever meet someone who just rubbed you the wrong way?
Of course.
Of course. Yeah, all of us have. And, it happens in a split second where we meet someone and something about them just doesn't seem quite right. And that horn effect, it impacts and it affects customers. So this property manager, if he sees what he saw through that window, that's the horn effect. Now, what happens in the presence of the horn effect is skepticism. The mind tends to shut down, become skeptical, where customers start to think to themselves, well, that doesn't look quite right. And whenever the customer starts to become skeptical and their mind starts to shut down, now it takes a lot of influence and a lot of persuasion to change their mind. Best thing to do, my friends, is not to get there in the first place. Make that great first impression. So the high-quality service companies who work on air conditioners and furnaces, they have dress codes. They have codes about hair length. They have codes about what needs to be covered if you have tattoos. Those dress codes are out there. The best jobs with the best contractors have standards. And they have expectations for the employees. And the question we have to consider is, where do I want to work? Do I want to work with the best company in town? Or do I want to work with a company who's just mediocre and just get by? Because I assure you, working with the best company in town is a lot more fun, it's a lot more profitable, and you get to differentiate yourself in the marketplace. There's that word, differentiate. Lots of syllables there. Differentiate is a key word, especially in this industry. Because, for years, decades ago, tradespeople who could turn a wrench, they were considered to be a commodity. The opposite of what differentiation is. A commodity is when everything's the same. So if everything's the same, all customers look for is the cheapest one. Find the cheapest guy in town, the cheapest technician, the cheapest plumber. But then when some contractors start to differentiate themselves, they start to raise the bar, they start to look a little more special, have the trucks clean, and they start to make that great first impression. That differentiation changes the image of the company. And then you have what is called a brand along with behavior that is congruent to the brand. So there's that word, congruency and customer service. Congruency is an interesting word. What it means is when things are in harmony, when things match. So when things are in harmony, the brand of the company means high quality, And there should be harmony in the behavior of the employees so that the technicians and the drivers and the dispatchers, they have that same sense of harmony. They are congruent to that brand where the bar is real high. And when that happens, customers, not all of them, but the ones that really care, they will pay more for better service. And this lesson has proven itself to be true over and over again.